The one and only Adam Carolla is our guest here on the Steve Deace Show on Blaze TV, radio and podcast. Adam, it is an honor to have you with us, brother. How are you?
I'm well. Thanks for having me.
So you've got a film that was very successful last year, talking about political correctness and what it's doing really to our culture, to our ability to communicate with one another, to our ability, frankly, just to even laugh and live together, called No Safe Spaces. It's out on demand right now. Tell us about the film.
Well, it's Dennis Prager and I, and then a sort of cast of notable names from the right and from the left and from the center. It's us basically taking this notion of free speech and breaking it down from unique perspectives. Dennis comes from a very different place than I come from, and vice versa, obviously. And yet we both agree on this one subject. But it's also a good film. It's an entertaining film, and it has a lot of humor in it. Dennis is a funny guy who appreciates humor, and I'm not going to speak for very long without saying something funny. So it's got a lot of smiles in it, and I don't want people to think it's just a preachy, docu snooze fest. It's a really entertaining film.
So I got to know, take us to the origin of this film. Who breaks off the phone call between Adam Carolla and Dennis Prager? I used to work with Dennis at Salem Radio, so I'm very well aware of him. So who breaks off that phone call and says, I got a great idea for a partnership, for a duo? Where does that story begin?
Well, Dennis and I had been friends for a while and had actually toured around the country and done some speaking engagements together. And it was always a joy to spend time with Dennis, as you know. Mm-hmm. And he really enjoyed my company, and I really enjoyed his company. He was just one of my favorite guys to, the thing that was funny about hanging out with Dennis is like hanging out in the green room backstage and having our conversation interrupted sometimes to have to go out on stage and have a conversation. It was almost like a disappointment. Like I was so into talking to him. So when the producers came to us and said, you want to do a film together? For me, it was just an excuse to hang out with Dennis. And I think he kind of felt the same way. So we immediately just signed on.
So you're in the gated community in the podcast world. I would live probably in where our platform is in like the upper middle class. So I don't get around as much as somebody like you. I'm not as nearly in demand as somebody like you, but I do get around. And I've never had anybody come up to me at an airport, say, hi, I'm a member of the social media mob. Hey, I'm with the cancel culture. Can I introduce myself? Who are these people? Who are these nameless, faceless people with all these screen names that corporate America and a lot of the people involved in what gets said and done in pop culture are deathly afraid of, Adam? Who are they?
I think they are younger people. Sadly, it always makes me sad when I see some middle-aged dude that's in this group, because I'm like, these guys, when you were a kid, there was your dad, and your dad had his dad friends, mm-hmm. and you picture those guys are your dad's friends' ages when you were 11. And you're thinking to yourself, really, these guys are engaged in this nonsense? These are mostly people who I realize don't have hobbies. And I know it sounds like I'm making a joke, but I'm not really making a joke. All the guys I know who are like car guys, I'm pretty deep in the car community. The car guys don't engage in this because they have a passion, they have a love, they have things they want to do. The guys I know who are builders, the guys who put wood together, the guys who fabricate metal, these guys, like the people that have passions and hobbies, not engaged in this asinine behavior. It's the people who their hobby is either watching CNN or staring at their computer and trying to deplatform people they disagree with. They're essentially, hobbies have become other people, not hobbies as we used to know it. I mean, just think about hobbies. People used to be into things. They're not into that. They're into this sort of, climate change, but that's not something that ever ends. I mean, like I was thinking about the dynamic behind this. When you're into car restoration, you restore the car and then eventually you drive it to the Bob's Big Boy and order a shake. If you're into climate change or social justice, it never ends. You're just frustrated your entire life.
That is a fascinating observation, because one of the things that I'm always curious about is what is the driving impulse of this? I mean, I understand historically that movements associated with fascism or Marxism, they have, you know, proto iterations that begin this way: the stifling of dissent, creativity, free speech, things of that nature, in order to set the stage for something. And I think that that's part of what's going on here, which is probably what draws somebody like a Dennis Prager or myself into the debate. But then I just think there's just frankly a lot of losers. I mean, I think there's a lot of 23-year-old dudes who just never were in a fight. I think what the great prophet Ice-T once said, which is Twitter is the place for a bunch of people to say things that they would have never said to somebody's face without getting punched in the mouth. And I think that's part of it. I think that, you know, a lot of people, I see what goes on with my kids and their friends and what they say to each other on their Snapchats and text messages. I mean, you and I are probably roughly the same age. If we ever got caught saying something like that about somebody else, even if we thought it, you better be prepared to throw down right now. There's going to be a fight. Someone's crying, bleeding. There was almost like a built-in honor code growing up. And I just think this generation just never had that, with zero tolerance policies and everything else. And it's massively passive aggressive. And it's just never really faced any kind of real confrontational, accountability for being a dumbass.
100% correct. They also never learned how to lose. Now, that's not the same as getting a participation trophy. That is not learning how to lose. So the thing that I've realized, like when my son ran cross country when he was 8 and he came in 7th place, and I said, okay, it's time to go home. His mom said, no, now the podium ceremony. And I said, the podium ceremony is only for the top 3. And she said, oh, no, they're all getting out there. So what happened? Well, my son, he knows he didn't win the race. He knows he didn't come second in the race, but he doesn't feel like he lost. And you and I grew up doing a lot of losing. You know, high school football, I did a lot of losing. Little League baseball, I did a lot. Life to me was a lot of losing, and I learned how to deal with losing. Mm-hmm. This new group hasn't learned how to deal with losing. I mean, look at it this way. They lost an election for a president and completely went bat crap crazy and never let it go, never accepted it. They literally just went, sorry, you lost. Literally, your guy won, and in the past 2 terms, you had 8 years. Now, your girl lost, and our guy won. So that's going to be 4 years, and they went nuts. They just went ballistic. Like, they literally can't lose. They don't know how to lose. They can't accept it.
I think that's a good observation as well. I've told my daughters that one of the main requirements for them, if they want their father's permission, or the guy who wants to marry them wants my permission to do so, if you want to be old-fashioned and traditional about it, one of the 2 requirements is they had to have gotten their ass kicked at least once in life, taken a punch, either figuratively or literally. Maybe not literally in a fight, but been cut from a team, lost something, didn't get a job, gotten fired from a job. Because a man that's never been kicked up, put down, will be one of 2 things. Either A, he'll be completely passive, afraid of taking any risk because he's not sure he can take a punch, fail, and get back up. Or B, and I think that's the driving impulse that you're talking about, driving cancel culture, it'll be the exact opposite. It'll be an extreme amount of arrogance. The idea that I can't ever lose, I'll never lose, that I'm somehow entitled to not be offended. That seems to be what you're describing here as one of the impetuses that are driving this.
Absolutely. I mean, it's such an important, maybe more important than winning, is losing. And if you don't learn, if we protect or we shield, basically it's like this. A lot of these young people have allergies and hay fevers and, lactose and gluten intolerant. They have a lot of intolerance. Why? Because we scrubbed them down with Purell and we kept them away from dirt and we weakened their immune system. And that's why half these kids are allergic to peanut butter when nobody you knew growing up was allergic to peanut butter.
That was a food group when we were growing up, Adam.
Right. It really was. So we essentially, by trying to protect them, denied them the ability to strengthen their immune system. Well, we've done the exact same thing with losing because we didn't want to make them feel bad. We decided to enact the slaughter rule in Little League, which is, if the other team got up by more than 8 runs before the 7th inning, we'd call the game. That doesn't do anything for anybody. And also, it doesn't let you build up a system like your immune system, which you need to do. It's important. It's not about everything positive. There's negative. You learn a lot from negativity. You learn that if there's a flame coming out of your cooktop and you put your hand over it, it'll burn your hand. That's what you learn. It's a good lesson. It may sting, but it's a good lesson.
Incredible cast involved in this. And as Adam mentioned a few minutes ago, I mean, it's across the ideological spectrum from Van Jones and Alan Dershowitz to Ben Shapiro, our colleague here at The Blaze, Dave Rubin, Jordan Peterson, Tim Allen. I mean, there's an all-star cast involved in this. You want to check it out. It's going to be on my list to watch here over the next few days as well. No Safe Spaces on demand right now, celebrating, championing free speech. Defending it as well. Adam Carolla, #1 podcaster in the country. Brother, thank you for joining us. It's been a pleasure having you with us. Take care, all right?
Thanks for having me.
You bet.